Sou Luyanda. Hello.
Hi, yes, can
Uh,
you hear
I,
me?
yeah, I did a brief introduce about our shared project. Just
Yes,
telling that since 2017 we have been working together. But I think now it's your time. If you can introduce yourself and let's talk together.
sure, no problem. Hello everyone. I hope everyone is well. It's a very cold day this side here in Cape Town, South Africa. Um, I'm Luyanda Zindela, and I have been collaborating with Andrea and the good people at Lab Inter and everybody else since 2017. I've worked with Andrea on a few projects, and yeah, that's. I guess I will be my contribution to this discussion today will sort of surround some of the things that I contributed, but also some of the things that I got from working together with everybody else who contributed to the various projects that we worked on. Um, yeah. You said I must just introduce, yes?
Yes, go ahead.
Um, so personally, my collaboration with Andrea and Lab Enter began all the way back in 2017. We did this was for the DigiFest, a digital arts festival, and that was hosted by by my university. I was still a master's student at the time, and we sought to initially sought to activate the library space, which was in the basement of my university, and we the work that we did there sort of was the beginning of many other um, collaborations. And so the activation of that space, we're sort of focusing around water access, the access to water, and sort of thinking about the library space at the basement of the university as a watering hole. And we sort of thought of that library space, or just we're thinking around access and how much access different students from different socioeconomic backgrounds have to to the university's resources, and we sought to use water as a metaphor for that access. And so the intervention was essentially us creating an interactive installation where participants could enter various details, or sort of, yeah, they could enter or share various details pertaining to their um, various socioeconomic details about themselves, which would then be entered into a system which would then um, tell them how much access they would have to the space, which would then determine how much water. So we had like an interactive water dispensary unit where your access was determined, how much access or how much privilege you had was determined by how much water you have. And so obviously people from more privileged backgrounds would have access to more water. So it was a very sort of simple intervention, but the fact that it was done in a site that theoretically should be open to all students or should be open to anyone, we're sort of like commenting on how sometimes things that on paper should be accessible to everyone, more often than not in practice, are um, limited, whether through circumstance or whether through like, or yeah, so limited either, yeah, limited, oftentimes deliberately limited in order to create scarcity. And so that was like the first collaboration, which then led to the second virtual monuments collaboration between Lab Inter and a few other universities, as well as myself and a few other artists as well. And I don't know if Andreia, would you like to speak more about the virtual monument?
A gente vai falando pouquinho junto dos projetos. So I speak in Portuguese, Luyanda, that I think makes more sense.
No problem, no problem, no problem.
Então, aí, nessa parceria, né, que a gente vai fazendo ao longo do tempo, a gente desenvolveu esse projeto, Monumentos Virtuais, que, então, o que acontece? A gente trabalhou junto e a gente queria continuar fazendo coisas juntos. Esse intercâmbio, e como é que são as nossas similaridades, quais são as nossas diferenças, né? Quais são as nossas questões muito próximas sociais, desigualdade, né, como o trabalho anterior, né, desigualdade de informação, de água, e também muitas questões, né, a gente é um país, tem muitas questões similares também, né, que a gente ia encontrando. A gente quis continuar trabalhando. Nesse momento a gente tinha feito a oficina, né, com o Ricardo Dalfarra, e tinha já produzido material para planetário. Aí resolvemos então produzir esse projeto. O Luyanda ficou. No geral, a gente sempre começa presencial. E aí, então, chegamos à ideia, naquele momento também, que todos os monumentos, né, vocês lembram de várias discussões, né, um aspecto mais territorial, questionando a colonialidade, né, e os monumentos sempre ao herói, né, colonizador lá na frente. E aí pensamos então de fazer esse projeto chamado Monumentos Virtuais, que é justamente de estar questionando essa questão do monumento. Pensando no planetário, né, o planetário ele também, como a gente tem visto, ele tem uma estética onde o centro é muito imperativo. Então a gente também ficou pensando numa estética que quebrasse, né, essa coisa de uma centralidade. E também de trabalhar com vídeo. Como é que a gente poderia estar trabalhando com vídeo no planetário? Você pega por um vídeo na parede, funciona bem. Você põe no planetário, ele distorce, história. A estética seria essa do vídeo do planetário. E aí, durante, em geral, o ano, os projetos que os 8 meses, a gente foi tendo esses reuniões e produzindo juntos, né? Então, eles fazendo tomadas, né? O que seriam os monumentos lá, né? Como é que seria.
A questão da linguagem, né? Fica muito forte.
Também a língua, a gente procura trazer as línguas que a gente tem acesso, então trabalhos em geral, depois em português, inglês, espanhol e
Zulu.
Eles têm 21 línguas oficiais. Na África do Sul, agora é mais forte. E o Luanda fala os inglês também. E aí a gente foi trabalhando, né, com esses registros e construindo essa ideia que seria então esses monumentos que fazem mais parte do cotidiano, né, que são efêmeros. Eu acho que o Matheus pode estar falando disso.
Eu acho que uma coisa que a questão da língua, a gente chegou a essa ideia, o que seria a virtualidade desses monumentos, né, que não seriam esses monumentos materiais de praça, né? Daí veio as questões das línguas, como das memórias, né, que são apagadas, e a gente buscou trazer isso, assim.
As situações do cotidiano, né? Esse momento que, digamos, criaria a história oficial daquele lugar. Não, a história oficial é constituída pelas caminhadas, pelos lugares cotidianos, né? Então, aí também tem camelódromo lá, tem camelódromo aqui, pelos tomadas que são camelódromos.
O Chinatown ali, os caras tinham tudo que é lugar, né? Esse era um padrão, assim.
Em algum momento eu também viajei para lá, e aí uma parte presencial, né? Isso era antes da pandemia. Quando depois da pandemia parece uma coisa meio ok, vamos fazer assim. Mas antes da pandemia não era tão usual a gente fazer projetos, né, com frequência. Luyanda, I gave one idea about the project, but I think you can talk something more that from your side, what was important in the project.
Okay. Well, yeah. So the counter monuments project was for me a space. Say again.
No, I asked if you wanted to talk something more about the virtual monuments.
The virtual monuments, yes. So yeah, so I remember, yeah, it's a project that sort of responded to how oftentimes physical monuments or monuments within public spaces are often sites that can be seen where states or positions of power used to sort of fix a single memory or a single story of an event as the official story. And so yeah, so virtual monuments was envisioned as a project that sought to what's the word, that sought to unsettle this single story that you often find with public monuments or yeah, and to sort of and we and this was sort of carried out in collaboration between Lab Inter, myself, Tasneem, and Niresh, in which we sort of contributed towards rather than creating an alternative space or a counter space where that was more accessible, that and also shared, where people could actually form where rather than creating a shared memory that comes from a specific site of power, it's a shared space that is contributed to by various different people living in various different places. Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yes. And so I was very much interested in this project as a space of like unsettling this notion of one physical monument being a definitive story of either a historical event or how people sort of see either their state or their culture through one specific site. And this project was an opportunity for us to use the boundless nature of virtual sites to highlight that, to create monuments plural, where memory or where memory can be shared and built together between us in our different spaces. And so I know that I made a much more personal or very specific contribution to this project. I personally at the time was sort of dealing with a personal loss, and so my contribution was sort of like a series of small video pieces that I was trying to sort of create a monument out of, or trying to remember the loss, a specific personal loss that I was experiencing at the time when that project was going. And so I don't know if Andreia has a few, like, I don't know if it's possible for us to play a few short clips from my contributions, if that's possible.
Acho que se ele tem, é melhor.
Você tem aí? Do you have there, Luyanda, to share? We are the LinkedIn, but we don't have yours.
You don't see it? Okay. But yeah, essentially, I don't want to take up too much time, but essentially, yeah, for me, what I can say about the project was it was a space for the creation of a shared monument that is made up of shared memories, and that is also in a state of flux, in the sense that physical monuments are often seen as unchanging, unshifting, despite the fact that people's attitudes towards these monuments can change over time. And so doing a monument in a virtual space allows the space itself to change as people are using it as well.
Eu acho que essa questão da mutação também é importante, porque a gente adaptava o trabalho para qualquer formato, né? A hora ele era para planetário, não era o formato final que era o trabalho, sim o conteúdo, né?
We have one question here.
Say that again.
We have a question here, so it'll be a kind of conversation. This panel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Sure. I can listen to. What is the question? Sorry.
Se vocês de onde vinham os vídeos, se vocês recebiam das pessoas, se vocês convidavam pessoas para se vocês filmavam. Me parece que vocês estão falando de uma memória colaborativa. Como é que era feita essa participação nesse convite? Quem participou?
Essa eu posso.
Okay, are you listening?
Para ele.
Hey, Luyanda, are you listening?
Que era mais do
Yes,
grupo.
I am listening. Yes.
So her question is where the videos came from. Like we are saying that it's a sharing experience and a lot of people are participating in the project, but how they send us the videos? Like external people or only the people from the group? Who does the videos? Who shot the videos?
Oh, okay. So with us from the Durban team, so I was working closely with Tasneem Sidat and Niresh Singh. So what we did was we started driving or just moving around our home city in Durban. And Niresh had a 360-degree camera. And so as well as other video recording equipment. And so we just sort of took those cameras and record. They sort of took the cameras, myself as well, sort of recorded various aspects of our everyday lives. And then I also had pre-existing video footage from my own like personal collection regarding my own family and my own family's history, and audio recordings of certain family members who aren't here anymore. And so we sort of, what's the word? We recorded, we compiled those videos. So it was just the three of us for that specific project. We compiled those videos and then we shared them onto a shared Google Drive folder, which the team in Brazil had access to. And I think that we were allowed to sort of play around with that footage. There was license to sort of interact with that footage in any way people saw fit, if I'm correct. If that's correct, Angela. Sorry, Andreia.
Yeah, for sure. Mateus,
Yeah.
Não, acho que era isso que ele respondeu, que a gente ficou 8 meses, quase toda semana a gente tinha reunião, então a gente trazia as memórias, trazia os conceitos e ia cruzando nessas ideias, assim.
Então lá na produção
eu me lembrei que tinha participação da Milena e Fortaleza nesse projeto, né? E a gente levou, mas eles mandaram os vídeos e a gente levou no final, tinha essa ideia de juntar essas memórias das 3 cidades. Daí tinha a questão do mar, de Durban e da praia de Fortaleza, com os bosques aqui, as montanhas de Santa Maria, que eles começam a se misturar e criam uma espécie de memória feita de recortes de vários locais. Entra um pouco a ideia que o Márcio traz da utopia, né, desse atravessamento de vários locais numa mesma memória, assim.
A menina é professora da Federal do Ceará e ela fez uma residência de 1 mês aqui justamente nessa época.
Eu acho que é importante, talvez, o Luyanda, depois, essa questão que essa mutação dos monumentos, ela culmina ali no contra-monumentos, né? E segue... Pode...
So, talking now about the counter-monuments.
Oh, I also wanted to say that for the digital, so we also at Durban University of Technology for the DigiFest, so our virtual art festival, Naresh, because we don't have a planetarium, Naresh we built our own makeshift, I wouldn't call it a planetarium, but a 360 projection apparatus, which students could stand inside and be immersed in. And so that was also sort of like an interesting challenge for us, is sort of trying to create a planetarium space for ourselves as well. And so that was done also for DigiFest in Durban.
Yeah, just one more about the idea, that I think was the only project from local country, né? A gente também participou de um evento grande de poesia, e era o único projeto local para evento internacional. Mas a gente sempre teve a importância da produção local.
E tinha o DigiFest, que eles organizavam em Nadut, né, em Durban. Todo ano a gente participava do evento também, um festival de arte e tecnologia.
I want to start to talk about counter-movements. Continuando o projeto de pesquisa.
Tem a voz dele, ó. Os mitos, né? As janelinhas dos mitos, essas conexões invisíveis. As notícias, né, da timeline, tudo isso. O livro atravessando. Ele tá meio travando, né, mas é por aí. Falando em Zulu,
Você entendeu? Assim, ó, a pergunta é, vocês fizeram vistos antes da pandemia?
Não, durante. Esses durante.
Não, só contextualizando.
Não, tipo assim, vocês tiveram um e depois vocês tiveram uma resposta desse vídeo que é o ponto.
Então, antes da pandemia, a gente fez monumentos virtuais, né, que era tudo presencial, né, as tomadas. E aí a gente continuou, monumentos virtuais foi 2018.
Não, 2019.
Aí em 2020 veio a pandemia, e a gente queria continuar trabalhando juntos. E a gente resolveu fazer o contra-monumentos, foi outro trabalho.
Mas é uma sequência, é um desdobramento, assim, né?
Não. Aí, quando a gente fala que a gente mostra em diferentes formatos, né, que o Johanna também falou, é na versão final. Aí, quando a gente tem uma versão final, a gente trabalha ela ou planetário, ou para vídeo mapping, ou para visão do centro.
São dois documentários, né? E recortes bem precisos de momentos históricos específicos. Minha pergunta é específica. Se da primeira versão, vocês, os vídeos que vocês mesmos fizeram, se vocês resolveram, de alguma maneira, voltar aos mesmos lugares para mostrar as diferenças que vocês novos registros.
Eu acho. Tu diz mostrar enquanto obra poética ou...
Não, sabe por quê?
Ou rever os lugares, acho que sim. Eu acho que a Andreia via... o Niresh filmava depois com a câmera em 360 os espaços vazios, né? A praia, tudo o mesmo lugar transformado. A gente aqui em Santa Maria também filmava. Sim. Juntar os materiais, não?
Alguns foram assim e outros não, porque mesmo que a gente tivesse toda a vida, todo mundo aqui no Brasil, estava cada um na sua casa. Então, uma estava lá em Livramento, né? E aí cada um estava num lugar, e aí já com outras pessoas, né? Outros cenários. Então, foi um pouco complicado.
Mas uma coisa que eu acho importante para a questão do formato, como a gente trabalha com essa coletânea de fragmentos e o tempo inteiro remixando e gerando um produto e pegando aquilo e remixando de novo, e isso nunca está fechado, então isso seguiu se desdobrando, né, em metaversos, a gente criou ambientes para isso era mapping, ora era planetário, a gente nunca fechou o formato, sabe?
Pode continuar.
A autoria é do grupo inteiro, que participou. É engraçado, porque quando ele chegou em 2021, a gente foi agregando o grupo Nano, a gente participou de uma Open Live do Hiperorgânicos, o grupo Nano entrou para dentro do projeto, daí o Hermes entrou, que era da PUC Campinas, daqui a pouco o projeto tinha 20 e tantas pessoas, sei lá, e...
Cada versão.
E daí a gente criou um metaverso, e era assim, a gente ia abrindo...
Não, quem participou, a gente só tem um acordo assim, todo mundo pode mostrar, só tem que comunicar o grupo, se todo mundo concorda, né? Então ele, às vezes é mostrado lá, às vezes é mostrado aqui, às vezes é mostrado em outros lugares.
E uma coisa legal sobre a autoria, por exemplo, assim, quem é que fez o metaverso? Não tem a diferença da pessoa que fez um registro de vídeo e está ali dentro, entendeu? Todo mundo é autor, sabe?
Todo mundo construiu ideias.
Junto, tudo bem, o metaverso, a parte técnica foi tal pessoa que desenvolveu. No caso, esse fui eu, mas teve outro momento, o vídeo foi eu e a Bárbara Almeida que fechamos, mas isso, todos os nomes estão iguais ali na autoria.
E na vida também sempre a gente tem bolsista de diferentes áreas, engenharia, design, cinema, então... E a gente nunca botou assim, o artista pensa, o engenheiro executa, o outro... É todo mundo junto fazendo. E aí, na hora de apresentar em exposições, é todo mundo junto, né? Até, às vezes tem o pessoal da engenharia, meu currículo nunca teve exposição.
Internacionais e tal,
Eu acho que pode...
Esse é um dos últimos que a gente fez para apresentar no DigiFest. Só que daí fica uma pergunta, a gente apresentou como uma performance ao vivo, porque é eu ali com o avatar, transmitindo ao vivo no Twitch, e outras pessoas entravam nesse metaverso e participavam. Mas só que eu dava o link também para as pessoas entrar no metaverso. Então ele é uma performance ou ele é um território, ele é o quê? Ou ele é o registro?
Are you listening?
Sorry, Luyanda.
Yes, I'm listening.
We got a little off tracks. So I have two questions that they asked to ask you, okay?
No problem.
All right, the first question is about counter moments and how we have two moments in space recorded. Like you guys have video from before the pandemic and from after the pandemic. So do you think it's a good idea or it's possible for we to go there to the same places that you guys recorded in virtual monuments and then counter monuments, like go before and after the pandemic?
Could you ask that question one more time? Say that again. Could I?
Yes. So do you think it's possible or it's a good idea?
No, it happened.
It happened.
Aconteceu.
Okay. So do you think that happened? You guys went to the same places from before the pandemic in virtual monuments, and then after the pandemic to counter monuments.
Yeah.
Yes. So do you guys record the same places in different moments?
So the challenge with me is after the pandemic, I changed cities.
No.
So I changed cities from Durban to Cape Town. So I recorded moving in and around Cape Town. But I how can I say, my team, the people I was collaborating with, so Niresh could potentially answer that question, but
I think in past they did some shots and recordings in
yes,
urban, in empty places. You remember them?
yes, they did shoot in various places in and around the city. Yes, before COVID and after it. Because I think they definitely shot more after COVID, because my country had very heavy COVID restrictions. So we had there was a national curfew, but also we were not allowed to move in and out of town or move in and out of the CBD. So I know that the recordings that they did after COVID, they were able to move a lot more freely. But it was also very interesting that during the curfew or the restrictions during COVID prevented people from moving from one neighborhood to another, but people within that neighborhood were able to sort of move around. And I remember Niresh did a few recordings of his neighborhood and spaces that he could move in during COVID, but movement was very limited.
And it was really interesting because in our talks, in our meetings,
Yes.
Luyanda brought, here we can't do this, the government can't allow us to drink alcohol, to do this. And we were in Bolsonaro government. And said, no, here is the opposite, the president appear without mask, the president. So it was really two different...
very different.
Two very different approaches, yes. I think we had one of the heaviest restrictions in the world. But what was very interesting with our country was that the general population was actually, maybe for the first year, so throughout 2020, the general population was actually willing to we didn't protest too much against the restrictions. Actually, people were okay with following the restrictions for the most part, until maybe 2021, where as the restrictions eased, people started complaining a bit more. But I think that our government took COVID really seriously, simply because a lot of the strains, a lot of the research was happening in our country as well. So yeah, it was just very interesting to see how limited, for example, like for myself, I couldn't leave. I spent 6 months of 2020 confined to my house. So that affected my ability to record, because I actually couldn't move, whereas other people could move around, but the movement was very restricted.
No, Cosmic.
Não, para um pouquinho. Então, só antes da gente mudar de projeto, então, no Monumentos Virtuais, a gente pensou o cotidiano como esse movimento efêmero, esse monumento efêmero. Aí, na pandemia, a gente pensou, e qual seria o monumento aqui, né? E aí veio a questão das emoções, né? Como cada um estava se sentindo naquele momento. Então, além de recordar, de gravar os lugares, a gente fez várias entrevistas com as pessoas. Então, essas falas que aparecem no vídeo são as entrevistas que foram feitas, né? Então, a Fábio estava em Livramento, aí tem espanhol, né? Que é ali a fronteira, a gente em diferentes lugares do Brasil, eles também, né? Então, tem entrevistas em Zulu, em inglês, e aí o monumento acabou sendo as emoções, né? Que cada um sentia, né?
A gente, nessa época, estava também começando a desenvolver projetos com inteligência artificial, né? E tinha um pessoal legal, o Túlio, o Davi, que estavam pesquisando a questão da língua,
2021.
como as emoções poderiam ser usando, né, redes neurais para identificar emoções através da fala. Daí a gente problematizou muito isso, porque a maioria dos datasets são treinados em inglês. Daí a gente brincava, né? Tá, se for alguém falando em alemão, ele vai achar que tá sempre com raiva. Se for, sabe, tinha essas questões. Daí a gente falava em português, usando uma rede treinada em italiano e inglês. Daí a gente usava esses parâmetros para fazer. A gente fez uma live em tempo quase 4 horas no Hiperorgânicos, onde a gente usava os dados dessa rede neural para alterar uma série de padrões. A gente, cada um dos participantes, um usava os dados para gerar um monstrinho, outro usava os dados para alterar imagens. Aqui tem uma parte final. Virou uma performance. Aqui já acabou. Era só um. Então, era isso. Tinha gente sonorizando esses dados, tinha gente trabalhando com outras questões. E era isso. O Contra Monumentos foi uma série de coisas, assim.
Aí, so let's talk about our last project, Luyanda. You can start, please.
Okay, so we're talking about sorry, one moment. We're talking about give me one moment.
Cosmic Answers.
I'm looking through my notes.
Cosmic Answers.
Yes, cosmic ancestry. So yeah, that was I'd fully moved to Cape Town, and so I was sort of working I contributed to this project as mostly like an independent collaborator, and it's sort of, I was very much interested in how, I'm just going to speak about my the pieces that I contributed to this project, but I was very much interested in how not just our relationship with the sky, but how the fact that we have this space that is boundless right above us, you know, and sort of like the boundlessness of the sky, the boundlessness of space, or like the infinity of space, and then sort of being here on Earth and sort of carrying on with a daily existence that requires us to navigate various confines. And so my contribution was a sort of performance piece where I recorded myself, my camera sort of pointed up at the sky whilst I was sort of carrying on with a normal day in Cape Town. So walking through the city, hearing the sounds of the city, using public transportation for people of my socioeconomic background, just sort of navigating the city, navigating sort of the confines of living in this world, but still living under sort of like an infinite space, which is sort of like the sky, you know? So there's clips of me entering a confined public transportation space, clips of me entering shops, leaving, hearing like the sound of the city is sort of all around me. And so sort of me sort of exploring sort of what does it mean to be under an infinite sky and have to navigate a normal life. What does a normal limited life mean under an infinite sky, if that makes sense? And so there was I contributed a performance video piece of that, and then also contributed an animation of hand-drawn portraits in my drawing style. So which is a cross-hatching style that is very time and labor requires a lot of time and labor. And yeah, so it was a very interesting project in that it was another sort of shared space in which various people from various backgrounds, people from different parts of the global South could contribute pieces of their relationship to the sky, or contribute pieces of how they see the sky and how the sky sort of looks back at them as well. Which is, I feel like, a unique perspective, not unique, but a very interesting and valuable perspective that we share as members of the Global South.
Yeah, do you remember that the project started when we were having coffee together in Johannesburg?
Yes. Well, no, we were having coffee in Cape Town, actually.
Cape Town, yeah. So,
yeah, we're having coffee in Cape Town, yes.
Yeah. Em 2023, né, eu fui de novo lá, e aí eu fui em Cape Town visitar, a Luyanda morava lá, e a gente tomou um café, a gente tem que começar um projeto novo. E aí, o que a gente pode dizer? Né? Aí o Luyanda disse, me interessa muito essa questão, quando a gente olha para o céu, o que a gente vê? Pensando que ainda estava nos dois hemisférios sul. And so this question, when I look at the sky, what I see was the concept of the project. And we start from that point.
Eu acho que eu poderia resumir em segundos a nossa narrativa que a gente construiu junto, foi, então, pensar um pouco essa relação, nossa ancestralidade cósmica, né, nossas relações enquanto espécie também entre nós. Então começava a ideia da primeira tecnologia ali, que seria talvez o fogo, uma fogueira, essas fagulhas subindo ao céu e criando uma série de grafismos, né, a gente conectando os pontinhos do céu ali. Então a gente teve todo um estudo de descobrir também que os mesmos desenhos que a gente criava, os nossos povos ancestrais criavam aqui, os povos da África também criavam, que eram beija-flores e eram muito parecidos. Daí, então, depois, aqui eu só mostrar a imagem dos grafismos, né, que hoje em dia são bem conhecidos, eles são... Acho que é aqui, cadê? Não. Então, assim, era uma jornada, né, como se fosse depois o homem saindo do ambiente natural, se desbravando pelos mares, né, criando rotas, primeiro criando caminhos na terra, depois rotas nos mares, criando mapas, trazendo essas fantasias todas para as cartas, para os mapas, depois os mapas atuais das redes de cabo que atravessam os oceanos.
E esses momentos, né, como ao mesmo tempo olhar para o céu era uma possibilidade de libertar para imaginários, mas hoje em dia alguém falava, quando olhava para o céu, se sentia vigiado, porque agora tem os satélites, tem isso, né? Então, e
também o Google ali, né, mapeando a relação entre os grafismos originários lá, mais com as tecnologias, e depois, no fechamento aqui, que vem mais essa questão de cada local olhando para o céu, né, e fecha com algumas propostas que o Luyanda vem trabalhando, né, com bico de pena e tal, e com gravuras da Thaís, e com algumas imagens de inteligência artificial. Então tinha essa mescla dessas linguagens, assim. Fechamos.
So, Luyanda, I will invite Bettina to join our meeting. And I think we can continue talking together. It's okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Luyanda, for being here with us.
Okay.
And,
So deixa eu um pouquinho para trás para me enxergar aqui.
And we continue our conversation with Bettina together.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Bettina, are you there? Can you hear us, listen to this? Hi, Bettina.
Ela está te ouvindo, teu microfone está mexendo lá.
Hi, Bettina. Parece que a internet
Quer
hoje.
tirar o cabo? Não, mas aqui tá bem. Ó. É ela que não tá. Tu tá bem da bateria? Daí tira o cabo. Mas caso a gente transmita direto pro Instagram, já fica salvo, caso a gente não possa confirmar o Meet, entendeu? Tem bastante bateria? Então tá ótimo.
Hi, Bettina.
Hi guys, I'm having some technical difficulties. I don't know if you, yeah, I don't know if it's worth me presenting. Actually, sorry about that. How?
So Bettina, talking about cosmic ancestry.
About the?
The project that we work together. So Bettina worked together. So maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit. Mm-hmm. So this event it's bilingual. So far we have been speaking a little bit in Portuguese, a little bit in English, like ours. And someone
Ingrid.
Oh, sorry. Ingrid translates for us too. So Luyanda was talking about the projects that we have been working together. And he just finished to show the cosmic ancestry, but how you participated as well. Maybe you can say something about the project, and after you can go to your talk. Looks good for you.
Sorry, is for me to present some of my work.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Então, da Andreia, então.
Não, só ficar aqui se der problema. Luyanda just present cosmic ancestry. Do you want to say something about cosmic ancestry?
About the Cosmic Ancestry Project? Yeah, it was, I was not so involved in the final project, but I think it was a project to think about the sky and the relationship to different contexts and cosmologies and histories. It related a little bit to some of my work on the history of technology and representation and the coloniality. Yeah, and it was nice to see the final piece that was presented in the inside the planetarium. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else. Yeah.
It's okay. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh yes, I'm a writer, researcher, and an artist, and I work in I work on the history of technology and coloniality. So I've been looking a lot at cameras, information technology like the telegraph and other kinds of technologies, and where they represent particular kinds of viewpoints and power within the
And do you want to start your presentation?
Yes, I can present. Luyanda, did you present already?
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second. Yeah. Yeah, my
acho que dá para falar que não precisa ter slides nem PowerPoint, ela pode só falar o que ela gostaria.
Bettina?
Yeah, so I just present by slides, right? My screen.
It's possible. I saw that you have internet issues there.
Yeah.
It's possible for you to share the slides.
Yes, I will now.
But if not, you just talk.
Internet.
Parece que nós dentro do UFSM tem problema de internet.
Ela caiu,
Ela
disse que ela está com internet.
Sim.
Ela falou no começo, ela disse, talvez seja melhor eu não apresentar.
Por causa dos slides.
Lá são 5 horas a mais.
Yeah, hi, sorry, I'm back. The problem was
No problem.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay. All right. So you should see.
Yeah, you can see.
You can see now, right? So yeah, I've been looking at the history of colonial technology, and my interest has been in the laying of telegraph cables during the South African War in 1899 to 1902. And I'm interested here in the role of this technology as a kind of magic that connects the center of empire to the periphery, but also that enables a, well, what I argue is that both the camera and these information technologies in the field of war present us with a kind of picture of the battlefield, because this war happens between the British Empire and these small colonies in South Africa, which are not actually colonies, they're independent settler states, Afrikaner states. So it's called the Anglo-Boer War. And here you have a soldier's diary photograph of someone laying telegraphic cables. And what I'm interested in here is the role of animals and horses particularly in the war infrastructural effort, but also I think what's important to understand is the employment also of Black South Africans in the war as laboring bodies to produce and repair infrastructure. And this kind of transfer of technological knowledge in the colonial field, which is happening here, is an image from West Africa, where it's a lantern slide from this collection of lantern slides over here, where white subjects are always technological subjects with technological knowledge, who are mobile, who travel, who move across and around these landscapes. And here you have the person whose slideshow this is, as I'm showing you a slideshow, who is transferring technological knowledge of these telegraphic systems to these men in the Congo, in West Africa, in actually Sierra Leone, in the 1890s. So alongside, and this is a lantern slide projector, which would show these lantern slides. Also inside the South African War Archive, you have these photographs, for example, of the camera in the field of the war. And this person is actually a photographer who is a reconnaissance photographer. He makes a manual. You can see he's drawing the coordinates on the photographs, and he makes a manual later on in between World War I and World War II of how to make reconnaissance photographs. So he's like an important person in the British military imagination, and this is him in the South African War. I think what's interesting here is you can see the camera is adapted to be placed on a telescopic stand, which is interesting if we take this idea from Simondon of, and thanks to Andreia, she's the person who introduced me to Simondon. We take this idea that, in fact, the the abstract technology in the kind of processes of concretization of technologies, right, of the machine. So an abstract machine, like an engine from a car, an older engine, could be taken out of that car and placed in a boat, for example, and it would still work as an engine. Whereas a more concretized version of that engine in a more contemporary car would not be able to operate outside of that. This is a more concrete machine. So it's a concrete, more individualized machine. So in this image and this instance with the camera technology, we can see you can adapt it, place it on the telescope stand, which means that the camera and technologies of viewing, which would be used to locate enemies in the battlefield, for example, are more imbricated or more interchangeable. So my kind of thinking about this colonial space in which the camera, information technology, photography, and here all play a role, but also military technologies like the cannon. And you can see it in this image where you have the cannon and the camera alongside each other in the field of the war from a small publication called Black and White Budget called, and it says underneath, "To field for weapons on the battlefield." In fact, the camera and the naval gun that you see there are both adapted, and the camera is carried on a kind of a wooden cart, which suggests that it is in fact also, the wooden cart is adapted to carry the camera, and the naval gun is taken from a ship and becomes a cannon on the field of the war. So again, these are examples of abstract machines in the Simondonian idea of concretization of machines. And so we can think, and I want to argue this, of the field of the war as a, and here you have an old film from the war, which shows a signaling flag and someone looking through binoculars. It's a film which is shot on a 70mm film called a biograph. And I filmed it off the screen in an archive. And you can see this kind of signaling technology at work in relation to the camera that is filming. And here we have another image from a filmmaker in the field of the war who is, again, placing the camera next to the cannon so that when the cannons shoot, he shoots the camera. And he actually describes this kind of action of shooting the camera as soon as he hears the signal to shoot the cannons, meaning that the camera's operations, his movements, and those of the military gunner are all one continuous set of operations, I would argue. In other words, what we're looking at is a kind of singular machine, a machine in which the camera, the cannons, are all part of the same abstract colonial machine, I would argue. So both media and information technology and military technology are operating together. I make a connection here to this kind of sort of early technologies of photographic inscription of bodily movement, so that we understand physical movements of the bodies of the camera operator, the telegraphist, and the horses in the field of the war, but also Black laboring bodies who are in the service of the British Army, particularly, as part of the same machine. And so this kind of mechanization of movement, I trace back to Etienne Jules Marie's chronophotographs, which are kind of happening at the same time as the war. Well, just before, in the 1890s, he's publishing his book Mouvement, and that's translated into English, I think, in like 1898. And he does all these experiments with the horse, where he prepares the horse with these reflective pieces of paper, and the horse is actually painted with lamp black, which is also used for printing. And then he captures this kind of movement of the horse through his chronophotography, which essentially looks like a graphic set of marks, a kind of diagrammatic or abstracted form of movement and motion. And what I'd argue is that he also places the human body in these systems where the human's own movements are measured through these kind of very kind of analog versions of kind of tracking and the human body's movements. And in fact, he uses similar hydraulics and even gutta-percha covered cables here in order to capture the human movements. Gutta-percha is in fact what's used to cover telegraphic cables. So the covering of telegraphic cables is also gutta-percha, which is very visible, in these images of telegraphic systems, such as here, with these early telegraphic systems are being these big, very embodied cables being laid across the sea here from Port Kerno, where the Eastern Telegraph Company lays the Trans-Pacific cable, completing the British Empire's all red line, where you can see all the telegraphic traffic in the this was already finished in 1903. So all of this was being laid during the same time as the war. Here is one of the cables covered in gutta-percha rubber, insulated with gutta-percha rubber on the inside, which is the same substance that is used by Etienne Jour-Marie in his systems. Here, for example, he's got a gutta-percha kind of coating around the wires, and this person jumps up and down while this machine in an analog fashion records their movements. So what I'm thinking about is the human machine or the human body mechanized, their movements becoming part of these recording and inscription machines in the same way as our smart kind of devices are measuring and recording our health. But in this instance, we need to place these machines and bodies and animals and horses inside the field of a war. Here, the military signaling, the active looking, the mediation of the war is also part of the same logic at work in Maré's recording of the human body. And in a future, much more concretized version of that abstract kind of machine, we have the smartwatch over here and the kind of measurement of the pulse and so on. Now, I feel like it's important also to link this to cybernetics, where you have this here from Claude Shannon's diagram of a correction system, which is used, for example, in radar systems later on, where the source, transmitter, receiver, and the observer play a role in inputting data into the system and thus actually changing the system. So feedback and fire control systems, radar systems, for example, in the 20th century, all work with correction data or feedback that actually changes the entire kind of calibration of the system. And in this sense, I also understand these systems here as having kind of feedback mechanisms, as does this system, which I'm thinking of as a social machine, a colonial machine, and an abstract machine, in which the camera, the cannons, the bodies, everybody in the scene of operations here is placed in a kind of particular relation to an ecology of operations, which I'm arguing functions like a Simondonian abstract machine, where we can still separate the parts, change things around, put the camera on the telegraph stand, put the cannon on, take the cannon off the ship and put it on land. So why am I saying this, and what's interesting about these differences between cybernetic closed systems with feedback loops that maintain homeostasis versus concretized technical objects, which are sort of seeking equilibrium, which are open to their associated milieu and maintain dynamic relationships with their environments and so on. What I'm interested in kind of tracking back to this colonial abstract machine from our kind of smart world back to this much more kind of analog version of the machines and humans is I want to think a bit about the distribution of bodies, sensibilities, and and actually here I really want to think about the distribution of racialized bodies, human bodies, and also non-human bodies like animals in relation to machines in this whole colonial project of the South African War, as an example of an abstracted version of a military colonial machine logic that I think becomes more and more concretized. For example, here in this image of radar and radar operators in the 20th century using radio and radar units to these like systems like SAGE, these much more complex ones here, to early systems like the battle tracer over here, where you have human observation, creating numerical computations, creating optical outputs, creating military action. This was something used in 1916 already to track radar positions for firing cannon systems. This fire control system, it was called, from World War I. And so, again, I think this is an abstract version. This is more concretized versions. And then we get into this idea of an ecology of operations from someone called Bernard Giogan, who talks about humans enter the solution into an talks about these kind of Sperry fire control systems and how they work, where biological energy, in other words, systems data travel in loops, converting from biological to numerical to graphical media minute by minute, rapidly shifting from analog to digital forms across optical and oral outputs. What's important here is that human bodies are still playing a role in these systems. They're part of these systems. They are a kind of the same as the distribution of functions, operations, machines, and bodies, human and non-human, are all part of the same ecology of operations. They're not separated. So bodies are in space using these systems. It is not more virtual as the system becomes more concretized. We can track back to this less concretized, more kind of abstract machine of the colonial camera, cannons, horses, people building bridges, and etc. We can track a kind of a development to the more concretized version of these kinds of multiple intelligences across a field of operation. And we can say that still bodies are distributed in space in relation now to screens, to data, and to guns and cannons, and also on the receiving end of this violence. So, for example, in many ways, the kind of 1940s into the 50s, with much more sophisticated radar screens, we can track a link, I think, across to our kind of more, kind of developed AI systems being used in Gaza as a concretization of the colonial machine that I have kind of treated as abstract. And I think here I'll stop, but I'll just point to some of my new work, which is working through some representations of nervous systems in the 19th century from Freud, where he's looking at external world and stimuli, and in his project for scientific psychology, Never Finished, where he really draws the nervous system as almost like a set of circuit diagrams. And he talks about these kinds of ways in which Bergson's work and Freud's work is aligned with a kind of idea of communications, governance, and mediation, as is Bergson's project with matter and memory, where perception and memory are read often in relation to an image of communications and governance and mediation. And so I kind of make a link back to some of Galvani's ideas of these moving animal parts in these kind of strange circuits, which he called organotechnical circuits for studying animal electricity in the 1780s, to the drawings of webs and networks of nerves in early kind of neurological research by Golgi and Raymond Kayal, and some of the work of George Henry Lewes, showing these kind of networked nerve systems, which one can argue, and people have argued, the organicist kind of system is modeled on the technological systems of networks of railways and telegraphs that are kind of extant with and are becoming more and more important in the colonial project. And so I kind of will end there with the kind of link between these kind of networks of empire that you see here in the all red line and these kind of nerve systems, but also the fact that inside some of the doctors' archives I looked at in London, I found these kind of quite problematic racial representations that are kind of stuck in between these postcards of brains. And in fact, race blackness and anti-blackness are written into or kind of very evident in a lot of these archives as well, where often Black subjects are seen as specimens and are written into the narrative only through as laboring subjects who are working and operating these machines. And I think it's interesting to try to see these subjects who are receiving technological knowledge supposedly from this white subject in the middle, who is the supposedly technological white subject, as in fact being able to disrupt, describe, or reinscribe these technologies on their own terms. And that's the kind of project I'm interested in thinking about further. How can we rethink Blackness against technicity or within technicity, or as a different kind of relation to technicity and to the abstract machine? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about at the moment. I hope that was coherent enough. So, yeah.
So thank you, Bettina, very much to share with us your research.
Very early thinking, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think also many aspects for us, but I open for questions if you want. But I think it was really interesting in your talk that we can see how important it is for us to think about in the relation that we have, because it's more a question of the thought that's behind the relation that we have with the machine than the machine itself. Because I think it was really interesting you show this abstract machine in the war when every elements were instruments.
Yes, exactly.
The people, the tree, the landscape, everybody was instrument to do something. And this kind of instrumental thought that we need to problematize, we need to think about and in some way deconstruct it. And when you bring things together with this kind of technicity and the colonial aspect to the political, the social, I think it's a way for us to go beyond the instrumental.
Thanks. Yeah, you think it's useful, the abstract? Do you think the abstract versus concretized example is helpful, Andreia?
I think so. I think our big challenge it is go to the concretized, to the technicity level. It's our big challenge that we have different ways. We spoke about this in the event, in the panels that we had before. I open our questions. Alguém quer fazer algum comentário?
Eu posso fazer. Vamos fazer em inglês também.
Vamos terminar.
Vou falar para ela sobre essa rede nervosa em volta do planeta, assim, como é que isso, assim. Essa pressão. Hi, Bettina. I'm going to ask you.
Hi.
Hello, I'm going to ask you in English and then I'm going to translate very quickly. Just
say again. Sorry, yeah. Say again.
I'm very intrigued by the image of the. I'm talking to the microphone and you're behind me. It's a bit tricky. I'm very intrigued by the image of this sort of nervous system that was created around the world, like connecting continents, and it's a bit. It's very. I don't know. It's nervous, activates our nervous system because it has, creates this image of constriction, of control. And then when you said that in 1903 it was already ready, let's say pre First World War as well, but we had a functioning system of information around the world. This is
For
very
sure.
intense to think about and realize this emotion. So I was
Yeah.
thinking, how can we release this nervous system, and can we kind of inject any other sort of information, or maybe bring in some interruption as well, and then listening to the other. It's not really, I mean, this is an image I wanted to share with you also because I saw that maybe you know the video of Tabitha Reside, you know this artist?
No, share with me, please. Yeah, in the chat, will you share?
I can write it down. Yeah, she made a video about this.
Please do.
The relation of cables and water, and how the cables, they follow the same traces of colonization and slavery.
Yeah, I would love that. I'm wanting to make a film on fiber optic cable landing stations next. So yeah, I'd be interested to see that very much.
She's very good. It's very beautiful because she kind of finds a way of releasing, let's say this tension that it is there. You know, this tension is, we live this tension every day. If you think about it. And just I want to share with you a quick example of how in Brazil we have today a very new collective of Black people in favelas and peripheries working with communication and information, and I'd say reversing reversing control and using the internet and creating like channels, you know, streaming of police violence, for example. So this, I'd say, this would be a direct response to how the state operates as well to control.
Okay.
So information becomes a way of denouncing, all this network of control. I'm going to write down the name. Eu falei para ela que acho que é bom a gente pensar como é que a gente consegue relaxar essa rede nervosa, né, que vai se criando com essa rede de telégrafos, né. E, na verdade, ela não falou que guerra é essa, né, até foi dar um Google assim, né. Talvez ela podia falar que guerra é essa que ela fala. Como se a gente soubesse que a gente não sabe, né? Se é a guerra da colonização. Acho que ela falou. Pode falar do meu lado. Bettina, just a quick question, if you can say to us, which war was that? Because we don't know that.
Yeah, you don't know. Sorry, it's the South African War. It's after the Cuban War with the Cuban-Spanish War, and then it's 1899 to 1902. Some people will say 1901, but actually kind of carried on to 1902. So it's very early 20th century. It's the first time camera technology and so many cameramen are in the war of making these films, a lot of fake films made also, and a lot of cameras carried on the soldiers. So a lot of my archival work was looking at soldiers, cameras and soldiers' photographic collections and letters also. I think you can see letters as a form of information alongside telegraphy, you know. And yeah, there was a major telegraphic infrastructure built in South Africa during the war. And really, as the result of that war, South Africa becomes a singular nation state in 1910, later on, where all of the colonies, Cape Colony, Natal, which is British, former Boer republics, Transvaal, informative national identity.
Yeah. Não sei, dá para abrir. Tá, aqui, ó.
So, Bettina, we have another panel now, so we should finish it now.
Eu não me liguei que estava lá.
Thank you very much for your participation.
So much.
Together with you, even online.
Thank you.
And
I'm glad I could join for a moment and share some new work. So yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice to have a.
Yes, I know Tabitha well. She's a friend. She's a really good friend, actually. Yeah, Tabitha's a very good friend. Is she? Do you know her? Is she living? She's now living in the loop, no? She's yeah, she's wonderful. We should all meet in Brazil with Tabitha. I should come.
Good idea.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Yes.
Bye.
Ciao. Take care. All right. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Mesmo assim,